The divine battle commences. I summoned a rat-like divine spirit. The Chinese audience mocked my unconventional choice, gazing at the formidable Qingju dragon. Yet I picked this one, a seemingly feeble yellow weasel spirit. Only I knew well. This was the existence that once defeated the Monkey King. His sand sorcery, divinely manipulated. The demon of the Lulan ruins. The raging wine sage. In truth, it's not that I didn't want elite gods like the Candle Dragon. But now China faces a challenge. From the Sundial Empire and 3 other nations. Any single god only gets one chance to fight. Against the first challenger, the Sundial. No need for an overpowered god. Their divine warrior actually summoned a giant python. The gargantuan python of the mundane world, something I never expected from Mengda, as I was stunned by the python's enormity. The Sundial's divine warrior, without waiting for our gods to fight, seized my moment of distraction and sliced off my head. Gasps rang out from the Chinese audience. Even General Long, the military commander, stood up, but the next second he was puzzled. Logically, when the divine warrior dies, the summoned god should disappear. Yet both gods remained on the arena. At that moment, the yellow weasel glanced at my corpse, then bellowed, 3 divine wines. The python screeched in agony. Its scales peeled off layer by layer by the sandstorm, leaving it a bloody mess, knowing its huge body couldn't evade. The python charged towards the sea, hoping the sand would lose effect in water. The yellow weasel sneered, and blew again harder. An even mightier sandstorm descended. In its path, land, rocks, or the sea itself, everything vanished. The gargantuan python, its flesh and blood dissipated rapidly. After a while, the yellow sand dispersed. The original sea, gone. The gargantuan python, gone too, replaced by a barren desert. The yellow weasel put away its lamp and landed slowly. That 3 profound divine wines left the audience utterly stunned, heaping praises non-stop. Just then, a vicious snake head burst from the sand, but instantly turned to ash before fully emerging. The Sundial divine warrior looked at my corpse bewildered, utterly confused, unable to understand how I, clearly dead, had returned. But alas, he had no chance to comprehend, as his consciousness faded to black, and he perished. The host Bobby then appeared to announce the match results. In this arena battle, the Chinese Empire wins. No cheers, no excitement, just dumbfounded faces. The audience, still processing the shocking reversal they had witnessed, still immersed in the lightning-fast reversal that had just transpired. But wasn't the marsh god already dead? How did he come back to life? In truth, even before stepping onto the ring, I had secretly used the 72 transformations taught to me by the Monkey King. With a single strand of hair, I transformed into my own likeness. I became a tiny flying insect, perched upon my doppelganger's body. When the Sun God Empire's assassin struck, I could have evaded the attack, but then I thought, perhaps this was an opportunity, so I allowed them to behead my doppelganger. Had it not been for Yemenkad's sneak attack at the last moment, I would have remained hidden, without revealing this ability. But the situation was dire then. Leaving me no choice but tact, I suddenly appeared from behind, and twisted the assassin's neck, snapping it. The bumblebee demon suddenly asked, "The technique you just used, the 72 transformations, could it be that the Monkey King taught this to you?" Hearing this, my heart sank, recalling his history with the Monkey King. I did not know how to respond for a moment. As if sensing my predicament, the bumblebee demon suddenly smiled. "You need not be tense. I'm just surprised that Monkey is still alive. The past is like smoke. It has already dissipated. He was merely a pitiful pawn after all. But the skills he imparted to you, though ultimately just supplementary techniques. As the demon lord's heir, you cannot be without lethal skills. This long-lost divine wind art is a supreme technique. Even in ancient times, it was an unmatched skill. If you can grasp even a portion of it, it will serve you for life. If our demon emperor still lived, how could the Buddhists have oppressed you so? As the demon emperor's heir, you should reunite our demon tribe and restore our former glory, wiping out the humans. The bumblebee demon sighed, as if recalling something. I should return to that place now. His body then transformed into a bumblebee and entered the gate of totality. But I had no chance to ask what that place was. Soon, the second round in the Sun God Empire began. Unexpectedly, their assassin this time was a curvy, buxom woman. As soon as she stepped out, she licked her lips and said enticingly, "Handsome, why don't you consider joining the Sun God Empire? With your abilities, just come over, and all your desires can be fulfilled." But I merely looked her up and down, and calmly replied, "Ma'am, your makeup is smudged." Dear Jordana snorted coldly, swaying her hips as she entered the gate of totality. I scoffed disdainfully, and also entered the gate. Soon, the world-honored one statue appeared before me. Several were familiar from the previous round, but 3 were new arrivals. A 3-legged crow, a turtle with a snake for a tail, and a small boy around 6 or 7 years old. The 3-legged crow needs no introduction. Aside from the golden crow, there is no other possibility. With a turtle-like form and a snake tail, this image could only be the black tortoise of the north. As for the final small boy, wearing just a loincloth, with the longevity tribe's emblem hung on his neck, who else could it be but the infant monk? It's a pity the bull demon king wasn't here. That would have been better. Though the infant is formidably strong, he's still just a child, facing off against those ancient northern beings who have lived countless years. If he was chosen, he would surely be taken advantage of. I then turned my gaze to the black tortoise, while the golden crow beside him was immediately disregarded by me. Among the golden crow tribe, aside from the ancestral lord and emperors, none of the later descendants are worth consideration. To be on the safe side, I had better choose the black tortoise of the incarnation of the yin, dark sovereign of the 9 ethereal realms, ruling across 10,000 miles. This junior greets you respectfully, welcoming the auspicious arrival of the black tortoise, one of the 4 sagely beasts. A beam of golden light shot forth from the black tortoise statue, piercing the azure sky. A rift opened in the void, revealing what seemed to be a vast ocean. A small solitary island stood upon the waves. The island began rising, revealing its true form. It was but a fragment of an immense tortoise's shell. Though I knew the black tortoise was massive, I did not expect this level of enormity. Massive waves churned as the black tortoise's true form was fully exposed. The northern audience was struck dumb with shock. Oh Magor, the Chinese realm harbors such a massive being. Quick, look, Deer has awakened the poison dragon Nidhogg. Ha ha. We're sure to win this time. What use is sheer size? None can withstand Nidhogg's venom. You should know, in Norse myth, the dragon slayer Nidhogg was the instigator of Ragnarok. He even felled and devoured the world tree, upon which the gods depended for life, proof of his terrifying might. By now the black tortoise had taken position. Sensing the opponent's menacing stare, his expression grew somewhat grave. As the battle commenced, there was no testing of defenses. The 2 behemoths immediately clashed in force. Then the dragon opened its massive jaws, spewing forth a torrent of venom that dyed the entire sky a sickly green. It then opened its gaping maw and clamped down on the black tortoise's body, trying to inject its poison into the tortoise's flesh. But then an unexpected, dramatic scene unfolded. The dragon's fangs shattered with a crunch against the black tortoise's nigh impregnable shell, seizing the dragon's moment of stunned surprise. The tortoise's tail suddenly whipped out its tongue. It took a bite at the 7-inch mark of the lone dragon's body. It tore off a large chunk of flesh directly from above. Facts proved, one mouth was no match for 2 mouths. The venom dragon out a painful wail. Its body thrashed about, tightly coiling around the black tortoise, attempting to constrict it to death. But the black tortoise's body was incomparably tenacious, utterly unaffected. A bluish-white mist spouted from the black tortoise's mouth. Not caring at all, A cloud of blue and white mist spewed from Xuanwu's mouth. The poisonous dragon's body began freezing at a visible speed. This was Xuanwu's icy power. As one of the 4 sacred beasts governing water, he naturally possessed mystical abilities. Soon, the poisonous dragon was frozen into an ice sculpture. Xuanwu shattered the dragon's body into splintered bones. The spectators below burst into an uproar. So ferocious, a total overwhelming victory. Are all the Norse deities this week? No wonder he's one of the 4 symbols. This sense of security is maxed out. I never could have imagined the battle would end so quickly. Xuanwu's strength is no exaggeration. No wonder he dared defy the sage in antiquity. But just as I was lost in thought, I suddenly realized something was amiss. The poisonous dragon wasn't dead yet, because the host Poppy hadn't come out to declare the match over, and the Greek Irola Dagona was still alive. Meaning the poisonous dragon survived. Xuanwu, originally about to leave, shifted slightly and turned to the pieces on the ground. Noticing the ice layer was starting to melt. Sure enough, the dragon's remains rapidly reassembled in the blink of an eye, forming a skeletal black figure, shrouded in a death-like miasma. Indistinctly, one could see vengeful spirits shuttling through its body. The poisonous dragon Nidhogg was the pet of Hel, Norse goddess of death. This ruler of the undead fed it daily with the souls of evildoers, granting Nidhogg the power over death itself. With this power, during Ragnarok, it captured a sliver and devoured the divine might of many gods, including the Allfather Odin, the thunder god Thor, the war god Tyr, Heimdallr, and more. You could say the corpses of Norse mythology's chief gods were all gnawed upon by it. Even its former master, the death goddess Hel, was no match. Nidhogg's tattered, broken form let out an ear-splitting roar. Though Xuanwu could ignore the dragon's bites, he dared not touch this venom, for he clearly sensed the poisonous dragon now was far mightier than before. A veil of mist rose around Xuanwu's body, shielding him from the toxin. The dragon then raised all 4 claws, swiping at Xuanwu's serpentine body. Its razor-sharp talons pierced through the water mist beading on Xuanwu's shell. A grating screech rang out. Xuanwu's vaunted carapace was scored with over a dozen white lines. Xuanwu's eyes narrowed. As one of the 4 symbols, to be marred by a mere brute was humiliating. He then raised all 4 limbs high and brought them crashing down. The devastating impact shook heaven and earth. In an instant, the ground split apart. It is said Xuanwu governs water, but they forget he also commands the power of earth. Snake for water, tortoise for land. This is the true form of Xuanwu. His body is heavy and sluggish, unable to fly. But this is not his weakness, for none dare take to the skies before him. Countless sea waters erupted from the earth below. The poison dragon soaring high above was smashed straight into the ground. Yet despite causing the great quake, an eerie silence blanketed the arena. Not a sound could be heard. Was I suffering from tinnitus? Why could I only feel the tremors, but hear no noise? Could the arena be shielding us? Yet I alone felt a profound dread. The sounds were not muted, but could not propagate at all. This crushing gravity suppressed even sound itself. Xuanwu's might was as terrifying as this. The poison dragon lay pinned by the gravity, utterly immobilized on the ground. Unable to so much as twitch, it watched in horror as one of Xuanwu's pillar-like legs descended towards its head. The poisonous dragon opened its maw suddenly, spewing flames directly at Xuanwu. The searing fires from the flame giant Surtur himself blasted Xuanwu head-on. This was the eternal flame, fabled to burn forever without being extinguished. The intense fires scorched Xuanwu's body, hissing, but failed to stop his lethal strike. In an instant, the dragon's head was crushed underfoot. Xuanwu's overwhelming power rent the foe asunder, leaving fissures in the earth bottomless and deep. The eternal flames covering the dragon instantly melted the ground into lava, yet the crushed remains soon reappeared, now wreathed in raging fires. Witnessing this, Xuanwu exhaled a bitter chill, but before it could reach the blazing dragon, the icy mists evaporated in the intense heat. A thick fog rose to shroud the arena. Then from the vapor came a resounding cry. When the mists parted, there stood a crimson bird of fire upon the stage. Unmistakably the vermilion fowl Zhuge of the four symbols. As the legends told, the azure dragon, white tiger, Zhuge and Xuanwu, along with the Qilin, were once a singular, quintessential beast, embodying the five elemental forces, governing production and destruction in a cyclical harmony, until some primal rift sundered them into five sacred beasts. Yet I never imagined Xuanwu would end up summoning Zhuge here. Though of course, this was not the true Zhuge, but rather its primal soul. For Zhuge descended from the lineage of the Fenghuang, progenitor of all flames. No earthly fire could harm this celestial fowl. Not even the eternal flame. The moment Zhuge's spirit manifested, its wings beat furiously towards the blazing dragon, more precisely, towards the eternal flames within. The gravity-bound dragon could only belch flames helplessly, in a futile attempt to drive Zhuge back. But its scorching breath had no effect. I can only keep breathing fire to prevent Suzaku from getting closer. Yet his fire dragon's breath fell upon the vermilion bird, not only causing no damage, but instead fueling the vermilion bird's might. The audience from the Greek Empire was shocked. My God, how could Huaxia summon the immortal phoenix? This is cheating. Absolute cheating. Our divine phoenix. How could it be summoned by Huaxia? The vermilion bird cared not for their discussions. In its eyes was only that cluster of eternal flame. Its instincts told it that the flames would greatly benefit it. With its sharp talons, it tore through the skeletal body of the lone dragon without obstruction. Its sharp beak then bit towards the eternal flame. Then, to the shock of the crowd, it swallowed the eternal flame whole. A resounding bird cry rang out. Suddenly, flames appeared, surrounding the vermilion bird's body. Its body also began to solidify gradually. The vermilion bird suddenly spat a ball of fire onto the dragon slayer's body. The Nidhogg, which had taken the form of a fire dragon, immediately let out a painful screech. Despite possessing the divine power of a fire giant, it could not withstand the flames under which the vermilion bird was tempered. It began to melt, finally turning to flying ashes. Old turtle, consider this me repaying a favor. The vermilion bird suddenly spoke in human tongue, saying to the black tortoise, before tearing through the void and disappearing. As for the group of Greek god summoners I was facing, cracks began to appear on their sensual bodies. Their bodies started crumbling bit by bit until they vanished completely. In this arena battle, the Huaxia Empire emerged victorious. I stood before the black tortoise, respectfully saying, "Thank you, Senior Black Tortoise, for your assistance this time." Yet the black tortoise glanced at me coldly, saying, "Were it not for the promise I made to Nuwa in the past, I would not have bothered with your trivial matters. You humans are selfish and self-serving. Having abandoned your belief in the gods in the past, why would you now seek my help?" Its words were full of disdain and scorn. Hearing this, the audience below felt as if their throats were gripped. They could not refute these words, for they were the truth, whether in the past or present. They only remembered to worship the gods when they needed their assistance. At other times when not needed, they cared not at all. In this regard, compared to other empires, they differed like heaven and earth. Being criticized publicly like this by the black tortoise felt utterly shameful. As I was about to offer some excuse, a voice came from the audience stands. "Please forgive us, great black tortoise deity. We were wrong. The black tortoise glanced at him, shaking its head in disappointment. You are wearing the aura of the nation's dragon. It seems you are this generation's human leader. But unfortunately, you are far too weak. In our era, the leader of any race was formidably powerful. Even the human race, physically the weakest, even those of the weakest individual combat prowess among the human race, their leaders at that time were all incredibly powerful. Unlike the present, when not a shred of strength remains within their bodies, Li Jiangwo showed no signs of life. He bowed to Xuanwu again. The teachings from the predecessors before, it was the ignorance of us descendants that led to the great fire today. But please, predecessors, give us a chance to make amends. We have rebuilt the altar of the gods. From now on, the incense offerings shall never. Please, immortals, give us a chance to atone. The generals beside Li Jiangwo also bowed. Please, immortals, give us a chance to atone. The audience in Huaxia began to rise one by one, bowing before Xuanwu. Seeing so many people pleading, Xuanwu's expression finally softened considerably. Rather than begging others to gain the understanding of the gods, you should first seek the response of your ancestors. After saying this, Xuanwu strode into the gate of creation. I bowed respectfully toward his departing back. The great god Xuanwu of the four celestial creatures returns to his position. As the words fell, 4 pillars of light shot up from the gate of creation. A giant figure of Xuanwu appeared, then entered the northern altar of the gods. The northern Xuanwu takes his position. A Zhuge enveloped in blazing flames emerged, flying toward the southern altar of the gods. The southern Zhuge takes its position. A massive King Long appeared, soaring toward the eastern altar of the gods. The eastern King Long takes its position. A white tiger with golden fur emerged, roaring toward the heavens, then descended into the western altar of the gods. The western Baihu takes its position. After the 4 celestial creatures entered the altars, the national fortune of Huaxia blazed again. But that was not all. Next, a beast with a dragon's head, deer's antlers, lion's eyes, tiger's back, bear's waist, and snake's scales charged out from the gate of creation. 7-colored, auspicious clouds formed under its feet. Sweet rains fell wherever it passed, whether human or animal. After being bathed in the sweet rain, all illnesses vanished. Even the crops, after being nourished by the rain, began to grow rapidly, bearing abundant fruit in the blink of an eye. This was the auspicious beast killing, which only appears in prosperous times. It represents blessing and auspiciousness, national peace and prosperity. With each step, it arrived at the central altar of the martial gods in the Huaxia Empire, the highest of martial arts. The killing takes its position. Following that resounding cry from the 5 altars of the gods in Huaxia, 5 pillars of golden, blue, green, red, and purple light shot skyward, finally merging into one. The 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth gathered. A brilliant draconic cry rang out. The golden dragon representing Huaxia's national fortune reappeared. The 5 elemental lights fell upon the golden dragon, adding a few scales to its body. Everyone gazed at this spectacle. A sense of pride welled up within. No regrets in this life to join the Huaxia. This slumbering eastern dragon, from today forth, has officially awoken. The golden dragon soared above the Huaxia Empire, then slowly descended to the earth. The keener observers noticed the place the Azure Dragon landed seemed to be Mount Kunlun. At this moment, not only the Huaxians fell to serene pride, even the previously defeated Sokolar and Hindu nations knelt on the ground before this sight, tears streaming down. After their earlier defeat, the demon realm collapsed, and they were directly annexed into Huaxia, becoming the Sokolar and Hindu provinces, thus becoming Huaxians themselves. Witnessing the golden dragon rise, they were utterly moved. This was the totem of the Huaxia Empire, majestic and dominating, unlike their gods who required sacrifices and worship from followers, even self-mutilation, to gain their protection. The Huaxian gods demanded nothing, even if the people forgot about them. Yet, when Huaxia faced danger, they would always show up without hesitation, shielding the Huaxia Empire from harm. These were the gods they should believe in and worship. Meanwhile, on the arena stage, the third battle officially began. Both sides entered the gate of creation to choose their deities. Among the emerging divine statues this time, half of them were actually humans. The merchant king emperor, Qin Shi Huangying Zheng, the god of war Bai Che, the sage Confucius, and the martial god Guan Yu. Looking at the 10 divine statues, I fell into a dilemma. On one side were the human heroes, demi-gods essentially. On the other were monsters and fiends, actual deities. The gap between the two was not just a small one. One could say the 5 human heroes were all experts. Any single one of them could defeat the 5 fiend gods. But the power I awakened aligned with the demon tribe. Rashly choosing a human hero could lead to severe backlash. Yet if I didn't, relying solely on those 5 fiend gods, I had no confidence in winning. With the mission to prevent Huaxia's downfall, be it the enemy or the Huaxians themselves, everyone was watching closely. As the countdown reached the last 10 seconds, I finally made up my mind, deciding to take a gamble. Huang Feng, Gaoxuan, and Zhuang Wu. They had all said before, one's life can be chosen. My principal deity is the Jade Emperor. In terms of status, he should be qualified. But I dare not choose the Jade Emperor's heart, for my opponent is the final human emperor, whose status is no lower than the Jade Emperor's. Qin Shi Huangying Zheng is an acceptable choice, but he's most renowned for political ability, not personal strength, only a temporary measure. The sage Confucius looks extraordinary, with a tiger's back and bear's waist, but ultimately a scholar, unfit for battle and bloodshed. Only the god of war Bai Che and Lord Guan Yu remained. This made things much simpler. With Bai Che present, who needed Guan Yu, I walked up to Bai Qi's statue and bowed deeply before him. Warrior, what are your intentions today? The path to greatness is arduous, with 100 battles. This time, with your banner raised, we shall slay the Lord of Death with 10,000 blades. Your humble servant speaks of civilization, respectfully welcoming the Lord of One. The god of war Bai Che descended. A rift opened in the void, torrents of blood gushing forth. Through the gap, an ancient battlefield could be seen, littered with broken branches and crumbling smoke walls. From gunpowder lingering. Only one figure stood amidst that ancient field of war. Clad in tattered, ruined armor, a dripping bloody blade gripped in hand. He stood there, as if the entire battlefield revolved around him, an incomparable killing intent. Even a mere glance would make one's eyes sting from the boundless bloodlust. A low, commanding voice rang out, making everyone present shudder involuntarily. Even the battle-hardened generals, like Dragon Lord, were shaken by the aura of this solitary man before them. How many had he slain? To accrue such terrifying killing intent, when had Huaxia ever produced such a god of slaughter? Hearing Bai Qi's question, I hurriedly paid respects to the Lord of One, General Bai Che. The death goddess Hera was briefly stunned seeing Bai Che, a mere mortal, daring to look down on me. Bai Che noticed Hera. Without a word, he spurred his war horse, charging right at her. Audacious wretch, how dare you invade my Huaxia? Die. I was alarmed. General, restrain yourself. Bai Che was unexpectedly so headstrong, quite different from the strategic perception in the histories. It seemed a little incongruous. However, my words came too late. Bai Che, astride his war horse, his long blade glowing bloody red, slashed towards Hera's neck. Hera did not flinch or dodge. As the blade neared her body, she stretched out a slender, pale hand and grasped Bai Qi's long sword. Ha, foolish arrogant mortal. With that, she squeezed her fingers, the long sword instantly shattering into pieces. She thrust out her shapely legs, leaping to the side, while Bai Qi's war horse could not evade in time and was pierced into a pincushion by the blade fragments. Bai Qi's expression remained calm. His right hand slowly drew another long sword from his trousers. That was merely a probe. The blade unsheathed, he pointed it at Hera. Prepare yourself. I shall slay this nameless ghost. The demon woman announced her name. In the instant the long sword was drawn, it seemed as if countless resentful souls were wailing around them. Hela raised an eyebrow, looking at Bai Che with keen interest. Such heavy killing intent. Now put down your weapon and become my servant. How insolent. I am the martial lord of Great Qin. My life will only be loyal to the Qin Emperor. You dare insult my sword?" Seeing the enraged Bai Che, Hela merely smiled faintly, not caring at all. He was a lofty god. How could he care about a mortal's feelings? Bai Qi's long sword fell. Hela thought he could control it with just a finger. But the moment his palm touched the long sword, it was instantly cut by the blade's edge. A mere mortal actually injured me. Hela looked at Bai Che in astonished disbelief, but Bai Che didn't care what he thought. His sword thrust, parried and stabbed, each move aimed to kill. Hela dared not drag it out further, wielding his ancient sword to meet Bai Qi's attacks. Soon he realized his swordsmanship was actually inferior to Bai Qi's. Being suppressed throughout, seeing Hela's body wielding a long sword, Bai Che slashed horizontally across Hela's neck. A head flew up and fell to the ground. Dead silence fell outside the arena. The divine follower of the unsetting empire, seeing this, turned to flee. But after just 2 steps, he let out a horrific scream. An ethereal figure flew out from his body. An ethereal figure flew out from his body. It was his soul. To the anxious audience of the unsetting empire, Hela's decapitated body suddenly moved. The severed head on the ground also opened its eyes again. The mortals braced to face a god's wrath. But Hela said, the head flying back onto the body. The unsetting empire's audience began cheering excitedly. Long live Lord Hela! The death goddess is invincible. Their god had revived. Bai Che frowned, muttering, an alchemist after all. In the Warring States period, many alchemists were recorded in history. They mastered various elixir-making arts and bizarre abilities. Deceitful trickery deluded many officials and nobles. Even King Yingzhong of Qin was convinced by their tales of eternal life. Recalling the soul leaving the divine follower's body earlier, Bai Che vaguely guessed the trick involved. Thus, his killing intent grew heavier. "How dare you use living traps?" Bai Che declared he should be killed. With fingers outstretched, he stroked upwards. Along the length of the sword, golden patterns emerged where his fingers passed. His formidable battle prowess stemmed largely from his own abilities. Only his brilliant military command had overshadowed his martial might. Millennia later, thousands of years later, Bai Che once again used his first love technique. But this time, what he aimed to slay was not Fang Shiyi or some local monster, but a heretical god from foreign lands. Bai Qi's fingers pointed like swords, slashing through the void. Immediately, over a dozen practice-long swords flew out, thrusting towards Hel. The armor she prided herself on was pierced through. The raging sword energy also began spreading over her body until she was burnt to ashes. Bai Che watched this impassively, about to leave, but the ashes that were once Hel condensed back into form again. "Over all these years, you are the first worthy of my full power. Martial Lord Bai Che of War, I'll remember you." Hel clapped her hands together and shouted loudly, "Come forth, my servants." As her voice fell, the ground began to crack open. A fierce 3-headed hellhound crawled up from below. Then a giant skeletal arm emerged, followed by countless lost souls. The 3-headed hellhound Garma, the skeletal guard Modka. These were Hel's direct subordinates, the administrators of the Norse underworld. Never would I have thought that Hel would summon them all. How can we fight this? The strength of that hellhound alone rivaled Hel's. Seeing this scene, my heart sank into the depths. The audience from the Huaxia region fell utterly silent, their eyes revealing disappointment. Any clear-eyed person could see the outcome was decided. Yet facing Hel's million vile forces behind her, Bai Qi's expression remained perfectly calm. He looked at me and asked, "Kid, are you afraid?" I answered honestly, "I'm afraid, but even more, I feel resignation." Bai Che rarely smiled, but he did then. "Fear is normal. I was afraid on my first campaign too. So you must grip your sword tightly and slay all who make you afraid. Then, It will be them who are afraid. It had been ages since I felt such blood boiling. My old brothers in arms must be itching to join as well. Bai Che said one last thing at the end, his brow furrowed. Then before all eyes, he knelt on one knee facing north. Foreign invaders encroach. This subject, Bai Che, entreats His Majesty the Qing King for permission to lead soldiers and subdue the rebels. His voice thundered like a dream across the arena. The gate of creation. That majestic figure appeared, head crowned with the diadem of 9 lineages, clad in a black robe with 9 dragons embroidered. Qing Shi Huang, Ying Zheng. Bai Che bowed before Ying Zheng. Thank you, Your Majesty. Then he turned to face Hell and her evil army. Where are the soldiers? This soldier is here, came the responding cry. 800 Qing troops from Hanggu. While all feudal lords were reduced to mere meat, an unprecedented great battle began its overture. This was a fight between mortals and deities. This would be the final battle. For the soldiers of the Great Qin after 1,000 years, Hell employed forbidden arts, summoning to mighty godly generals, along with tens of thousands of evil spirit soldiers. Bai Che alone had to face 3 godly kings. Compared to the Emperor of Nothingness ordeal, this was no less challenging. Originally, I had no hope left. Yet Bai Che showed not a hint of fear in his eyes. He drew his sword towards Hell and her evil army, coldly roaring, "My Qing generals and soldiers are not here. Follow me to slay the enemy." Deafening responses immediately rang out from the void. This soldier is here. This soldier is here. Illusory figures appeared behind Bai Che, one by one. 800 Qing troops from Hanggu, all feudal lords to be slain like dogs and meat. Slay, slay. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers arrayed in formation. Even through the arena boundary, one could feel the killing intent washing over. Just standing there gave the sense of an invincible, undefeatable force. Soldiers against soldiers, generals against generals. This was a battle between mortals and deities. I was deeply infected by this atmosphere. They could challenge gods with mortal bodies. How could I just stand aside, seeing their 3 archbishops? Today I too will take a step towards deicide. I expanded my body 100-fold, reaching for the heavens. This scene left the audience stunned. A battle on the divine arena had never occurred before for a deity's follower to attack a deity directly. Once they took that offensive, the deity was no longer bound by the rules and could retaliate against their follower directly. The Empire of the Unconquered Sun's audience screamed, "Kill him! Kill him! He's far too arrogant." As if hearing her followers' cries, the 3-headed hound abruptly turned its heads and then spewed flames at me. I did not dodge, but instead gathered force in my arm and struck out through the air at those flames. The raucous Empire audience fell deathly silent. Those flames shattered apart, bursting open like fireworks. This meant at this moment, I had gained the power to battle deities with a mortal body. A human standing equal to gods, so they could truly achieve this. Yet just then, I suddenly heard 2 soldiers crying out in alarm behind me. General Bai. At their shouts, I immediately turned to look. I saw Bai Che fallen from his horse, a sword piercing his chest. In that moment, the gate of creation reappeared above the battlefield. An imposing figure strode forth. It was none other than Qing Shi Huangdi, Martial Lord of One. You are a Qing warrior. Then show your true power. Do not let these barbarians underestimate us. The Huaxia will not permit you to hold back. Ying Zheng's words left everyone bewildered. What did he mean by show your true power? Just what kind of power did Bai Che possess? Could it be that before this Bai Che had not shown his true power? A series of doubts floated in everyone's minds. However, Bai Che soon provided them the answer. They saw him bow respectfully to Ying Zheng, then slowly stood up. "Young man, lend me your body for a moment. Let me tell you ... The gods are not invincible." Before I could respond, Bai Che's body suddenly vanished and merged with mine. It turned out Bai Che was just a wisp before. His true body had long decayed. That statue could not unleash his real power. After the fusion, I slowly opened my eyes. At this moment, I was both Jiang Wenming and Bai Che. A towering killing intent shot towards the heavens. Those who offend my Huaxia. A long sword quickly formed in my hand. Scorching, refining flames covered the blade. With one slash, the evil spirits tens of miles away didn't even have a chance to scream before turning into ash. Then, Bai Qi's voice rang in my mind. Boy, this is our human clan's breath cultivation technique. I understood that Bai Che was imparting the breath cultivation technique to me. I carefully observed every movement, raising both hands, gripping the sword hilt in a reverse grip, then forcefully thrusting towards the ground. Instantly, threads of golden patterns spread across the arena, reaching under the feet of the soldiers. Immediately after, everyone seemed to be cloaked in a golden radiance. The aura of the soldiers noticeably became more formidable, their armor more sturdy, the weapons in their hands sharper. Damn it, everyone level up. There are now tens of thousands of human soldiers on the battlefield. This move is ridiculously overpowered. The death goddess Hera frowned deeply. Her high ground advantage was nullified. The human wave could no longer exert its intended effect. She then joined her hands together and began chanting a spell. With a weaken, let all curses of decay befall me. With a swoosh, a golden flame ignited on my body. Those curses, like snow melting under scorching sun, vanished into smoke. Seeing her curses fail, Hera tried another approach. She wanted to peer into Bai Qi's darkness and fears. A grey light entered my body. Immediately, many of Bai Qi's memories surfaced, flying towards Hera. From his birth, to joining the army, to being recommended as a general, life and death battles, one after another, victories piling up. Forging his undefeated legend, he became the most renowned commander of his time, earning the moniker God of War. Until one day, he killed enemy prisoners of war. The looks people gave him changed. No longer respect and admiration, but fear like mice before a cat. People secretly called him the God of Slaughter. Did I err? No, I did not. If given another chance, I would choose the same. Bai Qi's consciousness gradually awakened. Hera felt an oppressive force she could barely contain. A golden flash, an undisguised look of admiration. God of Slaughter by Che. A fine name. I am the goddess of death, sovereign over all kings of this world. You are the god of slaughter, butcher of many lives. We two are a perfect match. Submit to me and rule the underworld together. Hera's voice dripped with temptation, yet his reply was but one. You annihilated 6 states in a bloody conquest. His sword fell, cleaving Hera's body in two. But she quickly reformed, using countless evil spirits. Bai Che took note of this. As long as the underworld's evil spirits existed, Hera could never truly die. Realizing this, Bai Qi's figure flickered, separating from my body. Soldiers, where are you? Who will follow me into hell? Over a dozen giant-sized generals vowed to follow their commander unto death. A bad premonition rose within me. As Bai Che finished speaking, his body abruptly dissipated. Countless resentful souls flew out from within him, enemies he had slain in battle. At this moment, Bai Che released his grip over them. The resentful energy of 1,000,000 souls congealed, causing even the goddess of death Hera to pale. Bai Che did not attack her this time, but led the 1,000,000 resentful souls to leap into the underworld's entrance. I made to follow them. I planned to follow them into the underworld, but as I approached the entrance to the realm of the dead, I was blocked by an invisible barrier. The host, Popey, appeared and stretched out a hand to stop me. The realm of kings. The living cannot proceed. Wait patiently. As time trickles away, from the very beginning until now, Qin Shi Huang had been standing before the gate of creation, ramrod straight, unmoving. Bai Che was his subject, representing the majesty of the Qin Empire. On such an important occasion, how could he not witness the rising and setting of the sun with his own eyes? 3 days passed, when suddenly the ground began to shake. From the entrance to the underworld on the arena, a figure emerged, followed by a second, Then a third. Look. It's General Bai Che. They did it. We won. Long live China. Long live the Qin Empire. Long live General Bai Che. At this moment, all Chinese were exhilarated. After 5 days and 4 nights, they had finally won the last battle. Bai Che returned unhumiliated, presenting the emperor with the severed heads of foreign deities, and Qin Shi Huangdi, who had been standing before the gate of creation, finally revealed a smile on his stern, majestic face. Without a word, he simply nodded at Bai Che and the soldiers, then turned and left. Bai Che bowed deeply towards the emperor's departing form, bidding farewell to his majesty. Then his body began dissipating, scattering into ashes. That's when I realized Bai Che had sacrificed his soul to appease the resentment of 1,000,000 wronged spirits. He was now truly dead, his spirit extinguished, never to return to the pantheon of gods. In that moment, all Chinese bowed deeply towards the direction Bai Che's ashes bidding scattered. Farewell to the one Marquis, the supreme warrior. The battle was over. China had won. It was time to choose the spoils of war, but I did not select from the rewards. Instead, I forced the Daisen Empire to hand over the Gate of Creation and return all the cultural relics they had plundered from China. The Daisen Empire's leadership initially tried to be defiant, but when I said that if they didn't hand it over, we would continue fighting until their empire was utterly destroyed, the Daisen leaders immediately cowered. Yet what I demanded next made them even more indignant, yet powerless to object. Sorry, I've changed my mind. Now I want more. I'm raising the stakes. The Daisen representative asked angrily, "What more do you want? Are all Chinese this fickle?" I waved my hand dismissively. This has nothing to do with China. I'm representing only myself now. After fighting me for so long, a bit of compensation isn't too much to ask, is it? Places like the British Museum, Buckingham Palace, is it too much to ask for compensation? Like the British Museum, Buckingham Palace, St. Paul's Cathedral. Just give me those. Not only do we need to defeat them, we must also destroy their spirit. Without their landmark buildings, their national pride will crumble. As long as we capture those structures, not all of them, even just 1 or 2, it will be enough to shatter their national confidence. The British Empire knows my intention, yet they can only grit their teeth. Even though their Odin has not appeared yet, I can guarantee that China has no existence that can defeat Odin. They dare not gamble. The host, Bobby, pointed his finger into the air. The 4 iconic buildings of the British Empire suddenly rose from the ground and were firmly placed beside China's old summer palace. Among them, countless artifacts from China inside the museum could finally be reclaimed today. The British audience looked like deflated balloons. Today they finally tasted what it feels like to be robbed. Then, a golden key of creation fell into the arena. And in that instant, hundreds of burning lamps appeared in China's pantheon. Immediately after, hundreds of shadowy figures flew out from the Gate of Creation and entered the pantheon. These shades were adorned with patterns, or dressed as warriors, or even as emperors. They were the shadows that existed in China's imperial history, now returning based on their coordinates. Witnessing this scene, a glimmer of hope arose within me. This time it was shadows, but next time, could it be the gods of heaven? As the hundreds of heroic spirits merged into their respective positions, in the minds of all Chinese people, memories suddenly appeared. These were about those heroic spirits. The missing history had been restored. The generals trembled, their faces showing ecstatic joy. The completion of history meant that more Chinese people would successfully awaken. Though the British Empire had fallen, there were still 3 other great empires remaining. Thus, restoring the memories of some Chinese deities became exceptionally important. But after experiencing several major battles, my strength was depleted. I could not continue fighting for now, and at that moment, the host suddenly announced, "Since the Chinese Empire has gathered 3 keys of creation, the rules of the mythological arena will be upgraded once more. All matches will be postponed for 3 days before resuming. This came as a pleasant surprise to me. What I needed most right now was time. Since the battles began, I had gained many abilities passed down by gods. Now, with these 3 days, I could quickly master them. After briefing the others, I found a secluded place to begin my training. The 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Yet I had still not made a breakthrough. The Supreme Commander Longyi looked at the countdown in his hand. Feeling anxious, if time ran out, and no one took the stage, we would be deemed to have forfeited. In the end, Longyi decided to take the stage first to help me. As the host Bobby was about to announce the start of the match, at that very moment, a blazing sun suddenly rose in the distance, rapidly hurtling towards the arena. Holy crap! How can there be 2 suns in the sky? Wait, there seems to be a figure inside. As the crowd buzzed with discussion, the scorching sun transformed into my form, crashing thunderously onto the stage. However, when everyone saw my appearance clearly, they froze in shock. Gone was my formerly handsome green mane, replaced instead by a glowing rabbit head. By now, the Vatican's divine warrior had taken the stage. He was a middle-aged man clad in armor. This battle would again be fought in the divine exchange format, which was my strongest combat style. The Vatican side selected first, choosing an angel with 3 pairs of wings behind him. In his hand was a golden longsword, which seemed to be burning with flames. It was the Archangel Michael. I didn't expect the Vatican to bring out such a powerful figure right away. The Archangel Michael, also known as the Angel of Battle, chief of the 7 Archons, his combat prowess is extremely formidable. He can be considered the most elite fighting force in the Eden Pantheon. Next, it was my turn to choose from the 10 divine scrolls. The light hovered over the 10 names inscribed on the scrolls. The quality of the divine artifacts refreshed this time was quite high. More than half of them were incredibly powerful. Neza, the 3rd prince, Vapotka, Li Jing, Hengha the twin generals, the gold and silver Hong kings, the scorpion spirit, the master of the Dipper, the demon king, the 9-souled sacred one. Neza needs no introduction. Though Vapotka's rank is not high, his combat power is astonishing. Unfortunately, he's the destined nemesis of my opponent. I cannot refuse him. Otherwise, what difference would there be from Longyi taking the stage himself? The scorpion spirit is immensely powerful, especially her venomous tail. Even the Monkey King could not withstand it. However, Michael has the ability to evolve, allowing him to neutralize her poison. Finally, my gaze fell upon the gold and silver Hong Kings, and the 9-souled sacred one. The 9-souled sacred one, an aberrant being from the primordial times, has terrifying power. Even Sun Wukong would have to submit before him, but he is solely focused on cultivating, not fond of combat. He would inevitably be at a disadvantage against the Archangel of Battle. In the end, only the gold and silver Hong Kings remained. Though their individual power is not extraordinarily strong, their lineage is formidable. They wield powerful artifacts, especially the purple golden gourd and the golden rope, veritable divine weapons. Below the immortal realm, they are an unstoppable force. Thinking this over, I had an idea. With a light wave of the 7-star sword hiding partially behind my banana fan, I summoned the purple golden gourd. The gold and silver Hong Kings stood side by side. Your humble servant greets you respectfully, welcoming the golden and silver child deities. I deliberately described the 2 deities' characteristics together in one description. The gold and silver Hong Kings were originally the 2 opposing forces of yin and yang energy, forcibly fusing and summoning them together. This way, not only could I compensate for their individual weaknesses, but also enhance their original strength. The interplay of yin and yang, this is the fundamental truth of Taoism. Theoretically, it is indeed valid. Just look at the retinues of the great Taoist masters. Everyone is accompanied by 2 child attendants. Is this a mere coincidence? Of course not. The 2 child attendants represent yin and yang, while the master themselves represents the unity. As the words left my lips, 2 pillars of black and white light descended from the void, clad in armor, with gold and silver helms, a golden rope tied at their waists, one hand gripping the 7-star sword, the other cradling a jade vase. The purple golden gourd rested on their backs. Success, my elites. The 2 have indeed gained each other's abilities. When summoning others later on, I can perform some degree of modification as well, suppressing my surging spiritual energy. I address the gold and silver Han Kings respectfully. Your humble servant Zhong Wenming greets you, great gold and silver kings. Though I addressed you as Chol deities during the summoning that was per the request of the Venerable Lord Lao before, now in your presence, I should properly address you as great kings. The gold and silver kings nodded slightly. Your intentions are understood by us both. Our master has sent us brothers to lend you our strength. I was about to inquire as to the Venerable Lord's current whereabouts, but before I could finish speaking, the gold and silver kings cut me off, making a gesture indicating ascension. I immediately understood. It seems the celestial immortals are watching this arena battle closely, but for some reason cannot make a personal appearance. Since the gold and silver kings have shown up, it represents the will of the immortals, especially with all those treasures they've brought. The gold and silver kings wave their hands, conjuring that ushered me off the stage. You step down first. Let us handle this unexpected event